Welcome to another deep dive, curated just for you guys, coming to you straight from Vintage Car Chronicles, our daily show.
That's right.
So if you love cars and history, you're in the right place today. We're taking a trip back in time to explore a company that, well, might be slipped under your radar. But back in the 50s and 60s, they were kind of a big deal. We're talking about Borgward, a German car manufacturer that was giving even Volkswagen a run for their money.
Oh, yeah. They were known for their innovative designs and engineering.
But then poof, vanished.
It's a classic rise and fall story, really, with some twists and turns along the way, almost like a vintage car rally itself.
I like that analogy, and that's what we're going to unpack today. What made them so successful? What led to their downfall? And get this, even a Borgward helicopter.
You heard right, a helicopter.
I'm already intrigued, so buckle up, everyone, as we dive into the story of Borgward, an automotive innovator that's almost been forgotten.
All right, so to really understand Borgward, we got to start with the man himself, Carl F.W. Borgward.
Okay.
Imagine being born in 1890, one of 13 children, and having this passion for cars right from childhood.
I read he even built a toy car as a kid.
He did. That's right around the late 1800s.
That's pretty impressive for that time.
It really shows that early drive, and not just to play with cars, but to understand how we work.
Yeah, it's like he was destined to be a car guy.
Right, but his path wasn't a straight line to building cars, though. He first worked with radiators and body panels, kind of honing his skills, before taking that entrepreneurial leap.
So he paid his dues.
Yeah, he did.
And then in 1924, he unveils his first vehicle.
This is where it gets interesting.
The Blitzcar.
Which translates to lightning cart.
Okay, I was going to ask about that.
It was a three-wheeled van, and I gotta say, a brilliant marketing move.
Well, how so?
See, Germany at the time had this tax loophole. You see, three-wheelers were classified as motorcycles, meaning you didn't need a license to drive one.
Oh, interesting.
Borgward saw that opportunity, and he ran with it.
Talk about being savvy.
Right.
It was a hit, too, right, with tradesmen, even the Postal Service.
Yes, exactly. It filled this very specific need in the market, and that's how he made a name for himself.
That's a smart way to start.
And then he followed it up with another successful three-wheeler. The Goliath, both vehicles, really cemented his reputation as an innovator, someone who could think outside the box.
Yeah, he wasn't afraid to try something different.
Not at all.
But he wasn't content with just three-wheelers. By 1931, he formed the Borgward Group, incorporating the Hanseloid and Goliath brands, and was producing a full range of vehicles.
That's right. By the 1930s, demand for Borgward cars was so high there were waiting lists.
Wow. Waiting lists.
Can you imagine that today?
For a car, it's almost unheard of.
It really shows you how much people valued his cars.
But then, as with many stories of that era, World War II kind of throws a wrench in things.
Yeah, the war was devastating for Borgward. His factories were bombed. He was even imprisoned for a time.
Oh, wow.
But he had this incredible resilience, this refusal to give up on his dream.
Talk about a tough time to be in the car business. So, post-war Germany factories and ruins materials are scarce. How did he even begin to rebuild?
This is where his ingenuity shines through.
Okay, I'm listening.
Remember that tax loophole with the three-wheelers? Well, he pulled off a similar move after the war to deal with material rationing. Instead of operating as one company, he split Borgward, Goliath, and Lloyd into separate entities.
Okay, so each one was treated as its own company.
Exactly.
That's clever, but also seems risky.
It was a gamble, having separate engineering and purchasing for each brand, that might have driven up costs in the long run.
Yeah, I can see that.
But in the immediate aftermath of the war, it was a gamble that paid off. It allowed him to get back to what he did best, building cars.
And the cars that came out of this period were amazing. It's like Borgward entered a golden age of design and innovation.
The 1950s were definitely exciting for Borgward. In 1949, he launched the Borgward Hansa 1500. It was the first all-new German post-war car.
Wow.
And it featured a Ponton body, the first in Europe.
Okay, so for those of us who aren't, fluent in vintage car lingo, what's a Ponton body?
Sure. So imagine a car with this smooth, streamlined design where the fenders have been integrated into the body itself. No more clunky, protruding fenders, just sleek, elegant curves.
Oh, okay, I get it.
It was a huge step forward in car design, and Borgward was leading the charge.
So ahead of the curve.
Yeah, and then in 1954 came the car that would become a true icon.
Let me guess, the Isabella.
The Isabella.
I've heard of that one.
Beautiful, stylish, and it performed well, too. And Borgward, always a fan of variety. He released it in different styles.
Oh, yeah. I remember reading about that there was a sedan, a station wagon.
And the gorgeous TS Coupe.
Yes, the TS Coupe.
It was like the sporty, rebellious cousin of the family.
The one that always gets the admiring glances.
Exactly. The TS Coupe had this powerful engine, especially for its size, and its design was just stunning. It really turned heads.
Yeah, they were lickers.
And these weren't just for the German market. Borgwards were being exported all over the world, even to Australia and New Zealand.
Wow, so they were making a global impact.
They were.
But it wasn't just about looks. Borgward was also pushing the boundaries of engineering.
Oh, absolutely. They were one of the first German manufacturers to introduce air suspension, which they featured on their P100 model, and automatic transmissions,
Which were
practically unheard of in European cars at the time.
right.
Borgward was a pioneer.
It's incredible how much they achieved, especially considering, the state of Germany after the war.
It really is.
This is where we get to the part that I find really intriguing, the Borgward helicopter.
Yes.
I mean, a helicopter.
The Fock Borgward BFK-1, it really shows, that Borgward wasn't afraid to think outside the box, to go beyond just cars.
Right.
He teamed up with Heinrich Fock, a famous helicopter designer,
Okay.
and created this utility helicopter mainly for agricultural work.
Huh. So not like a passenger helicopter?
No, not really. It wasn't a huge commercial success.
Okay.
But it shows you the scope of his ambition.
It's like he had this insatiable curiosity to just explore new frontiers in technology.
Right. Not just building a good car, but pushing the boundaries of what was possible.
It's pretty inspiring, actually.
It is.
But as we know, things took a turn for Borgward. The late 1950s weren't kind to the company, which started to unravel.
Well, by 1959, Borgward was the third largest car manufacturer in Germany.
Wow.
Right behind Volkswagen and Opel, but this success was kind of hiding some serious financial strain.
Uh-oh.
Their Lloyd and Goliath brands were actually losing money,
Oh.
and developing the P100 with its advanced air suspension had been extremely costly.
So some cracks were starting to show beneath the surface of this success story.
Yeah, you could say that.
Were there other factors at play?
Well, there's a theory that their model range became too broad.
Okay, how so?
So instead of focusing on a few key models and producing them in large numbers, they were making a wide variety.
Okay.
Which meant they couldn't achieve the same economies of scale as their competitors. Each car became more expensive to build.
Yeah, trying to please everyone can sometimes stretch a company too thin, right? Even when you're making fantastic cars, the numbers have to add up.
Exactly. And then came a real turning point.
Oh, what happened?
In 1960, the influential German magazine Der Spiegel published a highly critical article about Borgward.
Oh, I bet that didn't help.
It did not. It painted a very bleak picture of the company's financial health and criticized Carl Borgward's management style. Now, whether those criticisms were completely accurate is still debated today.
Right.
But the damage was done.
Yeah, bad press can be devastating, especially for a company already struggling. Did this lead to their downfall?
It was a major factor.
Okay.
The article eroded public confidence in Borgward. Suddenly, people were hesitant to buy their cars. This spooked the Bremen Senate, which had previously supported Borgward. And they refused to grant a crucial loan that the company desperately needed.
So it was like a domino effect. One negative article triggered this chain reaction that they just couldn't stop.
Exactly. Sales plummeted, creditors started demanding immediate payment, and Borgward was forced to hand over control to the city-state of Bremen.
Wow. What a turn of events. And then things get even more suspicious?
They do.
Suspicious in what way?
Well, the Bremen Senate appointed a BMW board member to oversee Borgward.
That does raise some eyebrows.
You can imagine some people saw this as a clear conflict of interest.
Yeah, it's like having the fox guard the hen house. Was there something more going on here?
Well, some believe that Borgward's success had threatened the bigger players in the German auto industry.
Like BMW or Mercedes?
Exactly, and they might have used their influence to undermine the company. Did they pressure banks to withhold loans? Did they use the media to spread negative stories?
That's getting into conspiracy theory territory.
It is. We don't know for sure, but it certainly raises questions.
Yeah, so was the bankruptcy a genuine failure, or was it orchestrated? It's like a real-life mystery.
It's a question that has haunted automotive historians for decades. We know that in 1961, Borgward was declared bankrupt. But here's the twist. All their creditors were paid in full, and there was even money left over after the liquidation process.
Wait, you tell me a bankrupt company managed to pay everyone back and still have money left?
It's unusual, right?
It adds fuel to those conspiracy theories if they weren't in such dire straits. Why did they go bankrupt in the first place?
It's a question that begs to be answered, but before we dive into those conspiracy theories, let's talk about what happened after the collapse in Germany, because even though Borgward closed its doors in 1961, their story didn't end there.
It's fascinating how even after bankruptcy, the Borgward story kept chugging along. It's like a vintage car that just won't quit. But we'll have to save that part of the story for next time. Join us for part 2 of our deep dive into Borgward.
I'll be here.
Where we'll uncover what happened to the brand and explore those revival attempts we mentioned earlier.
It's a story you won't want to miss.
So until then, happy motoring, everyone. It's fascinating how, even after bankruptcy, the Borgward story kept going. It's like a vintage car that just refuses to die.
It really is a testament to the brand's appeal. You know, their equipment was actually sold to a company in Mexico.
Oh, wow.
And believe it or not, production of the P100 continued there from 1967 to 1970.
So they found a new life south of the border that's pretty cool. Was the Mexican P100 the same as the German version? Or did they make any changes for that market?
There were some differences. They actually made several modifications, taking into account the specific needs and conditions in Mexico.
Uh-huh. Like what?
Well, for instance, they increased the ground clearance to better handle the rougher roads.
Makes sense.
And they tweaked the engine for better performance at higher altitudes.
So it was like a P100 adapted for adventure, ready to tackle the Mexican terrain.
Exactly. And it wasn't just Mexico. Remember the Isabella, that iconic model?
Yeah.
Well, it was also briefly assembled in Argentina.
Really?
Showing that Borgward's reach extended even beyond Mexico.
It's amazing how, even after bankruptcy, there was still this demand for Borgward cars in different parts of the world. It speaks to the quality and the desirability of their designs.
Absolutely. And, there's a vibrant community of Borgward enthusiasts out there.
Oh, I bet.
Who keep the memory of these cars alive. They meticulously restore them, show them off at events, and even race them.
Wow.
It's really remarkable how passionate people are about these cars, even decades after the company's demise.
I could see why there's something about a car with a story, a car that represents a bygone era of innovation and craftsmanship that just draws people in. It's like owning a piece of history.
Exactly. And speaking of history, let's go back to that controversial bankruptcy.
Okay, yeah.
Remember we talked about the suspicions surrounding it?
That some believe that Borgward's success had made them a target for the bigger German automakers.
Right. The idea that BMW or Mercedes might have had a hand in their downfall.
Is that a common belief amongst car enthusiasts?
It's definitely one of the more popular conspiracy theories out there.
Yeah.
The fact that a BMW board member was appointed to oversee Borgward after they ceded control to the Brabant Senate does raise some eyebrows.
It does.
As does the fact that all their creditors were paid in full despite the bankruptcy.
When you lay it out like that, it does sound a bit fishy, but is there any evidence to support this theory, or is it just speculation?
It's mainly speculation. Unfortunately, there's no smoking gun, no damning document that proves a deliberate sabotage.
Okay.
But the circumstances were unusual enough to fuel those suspicions.
Right. I guess in the absence of hard proof, people will always try to fill in the gaps with their own interpretations. It's human nature, to look for explanations, especially when something seems unjust or unfair.
Exactly. And the fact that Borgward was on the verge of becoming a major force in the German auto industry, potentially challenging the dominance of the established players, it adds another layer of intrigue.
It's like a classic David versus Goliath story, but with a tragic ending for David.
Yeah, if Borgward had survived, would the German auto landscape look different today? Would they be up there with Mercedes, BMW, and Audi?
It's a fascinating thought experiment, isn't it?
It's impossible to say for sure, but considering their innovative designs and their global reach, it's certainly possible that they could have become a major player in the global market.
They were already exporting to multiple continents.
Right.
They were ahead of the curve in terms of features like air suspension and automatic transmissions. Who knows what other innovations they might have come up with given more time.
Perhaps they would have been pioneers in electric cars or autonomous driving. Who knows?
We can only speculate.
We can, but one thing's for sure, their disappearance left a void in the automotive world.
It did, but even though the original Borgward company is gone, there have been attempts to revive the brand, haven't there?
Yes, Carl Borgward's grandson, Christian Borgward, has been the driving force behind these efforts.
Okay.
In 2015, they announced the return of the brand with a new SUV, the BX7, aimed primarily at the Chinese market.
That must have been exciting for Borgward enthusiasts. A new car carrying the legacy of the original company. Did the BX7 live up to the expectations?
It generated a lot of buzz. Initially, the design was modern and it boasted some impressive features, but it struggled to gain a strong foothold in the fiercely competitive Chinese market.
Oh, that's too bad. Was it a quality issue, or were there other factors at play?
It's hard to say definitively. The Chinese car market is incredibly complex with many established players and a constant influx of new models.
Yeah.
Brand recognition, pricing, marketing, even political factors can influence success.
Like a perfect storm of challenges.
It can be. So does this mean the Borgward revival is over?
Good question.
Not necessarily. The automotive industry is constantly evolving, and there's always room for new entrants, with compelling products and strong strategies. Who knows what the future holds for Borgward? Perhaps they'll find a niche market or develop a groundbreaking technology that will propel them back into the spotlight.
I'm curious to see what they come up with next. It would be fantastic to see them recapture some of that magic that made the original Borgward company so special. But even if that doesn't happen, their story remains a captivating tale of innovation, ambition, and resilience.
I agree. The Borgward story is a reminder that even in the face of adversity, passion and ingenuity can leave a lasting impact on the world. And who knows, maybe one day we'll see a new generation of Borgward cars on the roads carrying the torch of their innovative spirit.
As we've been talking about Borgward, I can't help but think about Carl Borgward, the man himself. We've discussed his cars, his company, the bankruptcy, but what was he like as a person?
He was a fascinating figure, very complex, clearly brilliant, a true visionary when it came to design and engineering, but he was also known for being incredibly demanding, a real perfectionist.
Well, I mean, that's not surprising, is it? You don't build a car company from scratch without having a strong personality and that drive to succeed, but that kind of perfectionism can be a double-edged sword, can't it? I mean, it can fuel innovation, but it can also lead to conflicts, maybe even stubbornness.
Oh, absolutely. There are stories about him spending hours in the workshop, tinkering with designs, pushing his engineers to their limits. But at the same time, he was deeply respected by his employees. They saw his passion, his commitment to quality, and that earned their loyalty.
It's interesting how those two sides can coexist, the demanding boss, but who also inspires respect and admiration. He must have had that charisma, that ability to make people believe in his vision.
He definitely had a way of rallying people around his ideas, and his vision went beyond just building good cars. He wanted to create something unique, something that stood out from the crowd.
And he did. I mean, think about the Isabella. It was more than just a car. It was a statement, stylish, innovative. It captured that spirit of optimism and progress that defined post-war Germany. It was a car that people aspired to earn.
Exactly, and features like air suspension and automatic transmission, those were just gimmicks. Borgward was pushing the boundaries, showing the world that a German company could rival, even surpass the best in the world. He was a pioneer in many ways.
It's truly a shame that his story ended the way it did. It makes you wonder what might have been if he'd had more time, more support. Could Borgward have become a household name like Mercedes or BMW?
It's the big question, isn't it? It's impossible to know for sure, but it's certainly a tantalizing thought. Imagine the cars they could have created with continued success and resources.
I know. And it's not just about the what-ifs. Borgward's story offers valuable lessons about the ups and downs of the auto industry. It's a reminder that even brilliant minds, innovative designs, a passionate workforce, they can't always overcome external pressures, and perhaps, as we've discussed, even foul play.
That's a good point. It highlights the fragility of success in a competitive industry like automotive, where factors beyond your control can have a huge impact on your fate.
But even though the Borgward company is gone, their legacy likes on those cars, especially the Isabella, are still admired and fought after by collectors today. They represent a unique blend of style innovation and German engineering that continues to fascinate car enthusiasts.
You can see that passion at vintage car shows and in online communities dedicated to Borgward. People are still restoring these cars, sharing stories, keeping the memory alive. It's quite remarkable.
It really is, and it's a testament to Carl Borgward's vision. He wanted to create cars that were not only well-built, but also beautiful and memorable cars that would leave a lasting impression, and he succeeded in doing just that.
I think that's a great point to end on. Carl Borgward poured his heart and soul into his company, and that passion is evident in every Borgward car ever produced, even though his company might be gone. His spirit of innovation and his dedication to excellence continue to inspire us today.
Well said, and thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the captivating world of Borgward.
It's been a pleasure exploring this fascinating story with you.
And for those of you listening, don't forget to tune in tomorrow for another episode of Vintage Car Chronicles, your daily dose of automotive history. We'll be back with a new story, a new car, and a new journey through the past. Until then, happy motoring.